I had the perfect marriage, or so I thought. When I caught my wife with her handsome colleague, she had the nerve to defend him. But it was the secret bank account that destroyed me. $30,000 of her child savings gone. Now I'm wondering if every inspection I ever passed for her restaurants was just another way she manipulated me. The truth? It's far worse than I imagined. My name is Mason Elliott. I'm 38 years old and work as a food safety specialist for one of the largest restaurant certification agencies in the Northeast. It's not the kind of job that makes you the life of the party, but it matters. One bad inspection could save hundreds of people from food poisoning, or worse. I take pride in what I do, even if most people's eyes glaze over when I explain it. I met Tara at a food industry conference in Boston, January 2019. The kind of corporate event where everyone wears name tags and pretends to be fascinated by the latest innovations in commercial refrigeration. I was there representing my agency, and she was attending as the regional operations manager for Pinnacle Dining Group, an upscale restaurant chain expanding rapidly across New England. I spotted her across the exhibition hall, standing confidently at her company's booth. Dark hair pulled back in a professional bun, but with a few strands that had broken free, framing her face. She had this focus in her eyes as she spoke with potential clients, intensity that was magnetic. "So you're the guy who can shut down my restaurants," she said when I approached her booth. No handshake, just a direct statement with the hint of a smile. I laughed, caught off guard by her directness. I prefer to think of myself as the guy who helps keep them open. "Mason Elliott," she read from my name tag. "Tell me, Mason Elliott, are you as strict with the regulations as everyone says?" "Only when it matters," I replied, meeting her gaze. "I'm not interested in technicalities. I'm interested in safety." Something changed in her expression. Respect, maybe. "Tara Pearson. And I might have misjudged you. We exchanged business cards, an antiquated ritual in the digital age, but I appreciated having something physical to remember her by." Our fingers brushed briefly during the exchange. Just a moment of contact, but enough to feel the electricity. Later that evening, at the conference networking mixer, we ran into each other again. This time, away from her company booth, she was more relaxed. 2 glasses of wine in, we'd moved from industry, talk to life stories. She told me about growing up in Connecticut, her culinary management degree, and her ambitions to revolutionize restaurant operations. "Your turn," she prompted, leaning slightly closer. I told her about my background in microbiology, my transition to food safety, and my dream of eventually opening a consulting firm to help small restaurants navigate regulations. When the event ended, I took a chance. "I'd like to continue this conversation sometime." Tara smiled, that genuine smile that would eventually become rare. "I'd like that too." Walking back to my hotel that night, her number saved in my phone, I felt optimistic about what might come next. I had no idea what I was walking into. After that conference, Tara and I started texting regularly. Nothing heavy at first, just sharing industry news, commenting on restaurant trends, and occasionally sending food memes that only people in our line of work would understand. She'd send a picture of some ridiculous plating at a high-end restaurant, and I'd counter with a health code violation I'd spotted in a newspaper photo. Our first official date was at a small Italian restaurant in Providence, halfway between her office in Boston and mine in New Haven. I arrived 15 minutes early, checked our reservation, and secured a quiet corner table. She arrived exactly on time, wearing a dark blue dress that made her look both professional and stunning. Testing the competition, I asked as she surveyed the restaurant with a critical eye. Tara laughed. "Force of habit. I can't eat anywhere without mentally redesigning their service flow. And I can't help but glance at their health inspection certificate," I admitted. "What a pair we make," she said, raising her water glass in a mock toast. That dinner lasted nearly 4 hours. We talked about everything: our childhoods, college experiences, career disappointments, and future aspirations. I told her about my plan to eventually start my own consulting firm, helping smaller restaurants meet safety standards without breaking their budgets. "That's admirable," she said. "Most inspectors just want to find violations. You actually want to help. Rules matter," I explained, "but so does context. A family-owned place shouldn't be held to the exact same standards as a corporate chain with 10 times the resources." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I like how you think, Mason Elliott. Over the next few months, our relationship intensified. Weekend visits became midweek stays. We'd cook elaborate meals in my kitchen, analyzing techniques and safety practices like the food nerds we were. By summer, we were talking about exclusivity. By fall, we were introducing each other to friends. My buddy Rick, who I'd known since college, pulled me aside at a tailgate party after meeting Tara. "She's impressive," he said, popping open another beer. "Smart, gorgeous, ambitious. But man, she's intense. You think you can keep up with her?" "That's what I like about her," I replied. "She pushes me to be better." Rick nodded, but I could tell he wasn't entirely convinced. "Just make sure you're both heading in the same direction." I brushed off his concern. What did Rick know? His longest relationship had been 3 months. Tara and I were different. We understood each other. We were building something substantial. By our 1-year anniversary, we were discussing marriage. Not in a hypothetical someday sense, but as a concrete plan. We sat down one Sunday afternoon and mapped out our 5-year trajectory. Marriage within a year, focus on career advancement for both of us, and then start a family around year 3, when we'd both be more established. The plan felt solid. Practical. We weren't kids making decisions based on emotions. We were adults creating a partnership with clear objectives and timelines. When I proposed 6 weeks later at the same Italian restaurant where we had our first date, I felt completely confident. I had no idea that the meticulous plan we'd created would be the first casualty of our marriage. The first 2 years of marriage with Tara were everything I'd hoped for. We purchased a colonial-style house in a quiet Connecticut suburb, close enough to both our work territories, but away from the city bustle. The commute was longer for both of us, but having a real home base seemed worth it. Our professional lives flourished in tandem. I was promoted to regional supervisor, overseeing a team of 12 inspectors across 3 states. Tara expanded Pinnacle Dining's presence from 6 restaurants to 15, earning recognition in the industry as a rising operations specialist. We balanced the household duties naturally. If I traveled for work, she handled the home front, and vice versa. When we were both swamped with deadlines, we'd order takeout and work side by side at the dining table until midnight, occasionally glancing up to exchange understanding smiles. "We make a good team," she said one night as we finished our respective reports. "The best," I agreed, reaching over to squeeze her hand. My parents, especially my mom, began dropping hints about grandchildren during their monthly visits. Mom would casually mention how my cousin's new baby was just the sweetest thing, or ask leading questions about the empty bedroom upstairs. "You're not getting any younger, you know," she reminded me during one Sunday dinner, while Tara was in the kitchen. "We have a plan, Mom," I replied firmly. "Career foundation first, then family." We agreed. Dad, sensing my discomfort, changed the subject. Later, he pulled me aside while I was grilling. "Your mother means well," he said, handing me a beer. "But remember, son, some things you can't schedule." When we were starting out, we thought we had all the time in the world, too. I nodded, respecting his wisdom, but confident in our approach. "We're on the same page, Dad. Just waiting for the right time." What I didn't mention was how our 3rd anniversary was approaching, the milestone we designated for starting our family. I was already preparing mentally for this transition, researching how other professionals balanced new parenthood with demanding careers. I even converted the spare bedroom into a home office, installing built-in desks on opposite walls. A strategic decision that would allow us to repurpose half the space for a nursery while maintaining a work area. Tara had seemed impressed by my initiative, but didn't comment on the family planning aspect. Looking back, her silence should have been my first warning. But I was too focused on executing our plan to notice her growing hesitation. I believe we were still in lockstep, marching confidently toward the future we'd designed together. In reality, we were already diverging, heading down separate paths that would eventually collide in spectacular fashion. The conversation that changed everything happened on our 3rd anniversary. I had planned a special evening, reservations at an exclusive restaurant in New York, followed by a Broadway show. During dinner, between the main course and dessert, I brought up the subject we'd been dancing around. "So," I said, reaching for her hand across the table, "I was thinking about our timeline. We're approaching the milestone we talked about." Tara set down her wine glass carefully. "For starting a family, you mean?" "Exactly." I smiled, encouraged by her directness. I've already started looking into our health insurance coverage for prenatal care, and the timing seems perfect with the current projects I'm overseeing. She withdrew her hand and sat back in her chair. Mason, I've been meaning to discuss this with you. I'm not sure this is the right time after all. My smile faltered. What do you mean? We agreed. I know what we agreed, she interrupted, her voice lowering. But things have changed. Pinnacle is considering me for the director position for the entire East Coast operation. That's fantastic, I exclaimed, genuinely happy for her. But I don't see why that changes our plans. People have babies and careers all the time. Her expression hardened slightly. This isn't just any career move. This is everything I've worked for. The travel alone would be impossible with a newborn. We could make it work, I insisted. My schedule has flexibility. I could take on more home. She sighed, glancing around the restaurant as if searching for escape routes. I need to focus completely on this opportunity, just for a year or so. Then we can revisit. I felt a tightness in my chest, but maintained my composure. A year? Tara, we've already pushed this back once when you were launching the New Hampshire locations. And it was the right call then, just like this is the right call now, she replied firmly. This isn't a no, Mason. It's a not yet. The dessert arrived, a chocolate souffle we were supposed to share. It sat untouched between us as an uncomfortable silence settled over our anniversary celebration. I understand ambition, I finally said, my voice steady despite my disappointment. But at some point, we need to prioritize our family plans too. We're not getting younger. She flinched at the echo of my mother's words. Don't pressure me on this. Not tonight. We went to the show as planned, sitting silently side by side in the darkened theater. On the surface, nothing had changed. But I felt something fundamental shift between us that night. The first serious divergence from our carefully constructed plan. The months following our anniversary turned our home into a battleground of silence. Tara threw herself into her new position at Pinnacle, often leaving before I woke and returning after I'd gone to bed. The few evenings we spent together were filled with superficial conversations about household matters or industry gossip, anything to avoid the elephant in the room. I tried to be supportive, bringing dinner to her office when she worked late and handling most of the household responsibilities. But with each passing week, the disconnection between us grew more pronounced. "You don't need to wait up," became her standard text message, replacing the affectionate communications we once shared. One Saturday morning, as Tara was preparing to head to the office again, I decided to address the situation directly. "Can we talk about what's happening here?" I asked, blocking her path to the door. Tara sighed, checking her watch. "I have a conference call in 40 minutes. "That's exactly my point," I said firmly. "You're physically here, but you haven't been present in our marriage for months. I'm working, Mason. This is what building a career looks like." Her tone had an edge I was hearing more frequently. "This isn't about your career. It's about us," I insisted. "We used to be partners. Now I feel like I'm just the caretaker of the house you occasionally sleep in." Her expression softened slightly. "It's temporary. This phase is intense, but it will settle. That's what you said last year," I reminded her. "And the year before that." "What do you want from me?" she asked, frustration evident in her voice. "To turn down opportunities? To settle for less? I want you to remember that we had a plan together," I replied calmly. "A plan that included both career advancement and starting a family." Tara's eyes hardened. "Plans change. Priorities shift." Apparently without discussion, I said, stepping aside to let her pass. She hesitated at the door. "We'll figure this out, Mason. Just not today." But today never seemed to come. As winter turned to spring, the emotional distance between us continued to grow. I maintained my routine, excelling at work, keeping our home running smoothly, and even starting weekend volunteer work at a local food pantry, partly to fill the empty hours, partly to maintain human connection that was increasingly absent at home. Rick noticed the change during our monthly poker game. "Everything all right with you and Tara?" he asked as the other guys stepped outside for a smoke break. "Just busy schedules," I replied automatically. Rick gave me a skeptical look. "You've been checking your phone every 5 minutes, and she hasn't texted once." I couldn't argue with his observation. "We're going through a rough patch." "It happens." "Sure does," he agreed, shuffling the cards. "Just remember what I told you when you first started dating. Make sure you're still heading in the same direction." I nodded, But as I drove home that night to an empty house, I wondered if Tara and I were even on the same map anymore. The situation reached critical mass on a Thursday evening in June. Tara had been out late almost every night that week, always with the same explanation: client dinners, team meetings, strategic planning sessions. I'd stopped questioning her directly, but the doubts were multiplying in my mind. That night, she stumbled through the door past midnight. I was sitting in the living room, finishing some work reports. "You're still up," she said, surprise evident in her voice. I closed my laptop. "I wanted to make sure you got home safely." "Client dinner," she explained, dropping her purse on the console table. The scent of alcohol wafted across the room. "Smells like a productive meeting," I commented, keeping my tone neutral. Tara narrowed her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just an observation." I stood up, ready to head upstairs. "Go ahead and say whatever you're thinking, Mason." Her words had a slight slur. I took a deep breath. "Fine. I think you've been lying to me about where you've been going and who you've been with." "Checking up on me now?" she challenged, stepping closer. "I shouldn't have to," I replied evenly. "Spouses usually volunteer information about their lives." She laughed, a harsh sound I barely recognized. "What do you want?" "A detailed itinerary. Time-stamped receipts." "Basic honesty would be a start," I said. Tara tried to push past me toward the stairs, but stumbled slightly. I reached out to steady her, gripping her elbow. She yanked her arm away violently. "Don't touch me. You're drunk, Tara. I'm trying to help." Her eyes flashed with anger. "I don't need your help. And if you ever try to control me like that again, this marriage is over." I stepped back, stunned by the venom in her voice. "Control you? I was keeping you from falling." "I mean it, Mason," she continued, ignoring my explanation. "One more display of your insecurity, and I'm done. I've worked too hard to let anyone hold me back." As she stormed upstairs, I stood frozen in place, trying to process what had just happened. The woman I married would never have spoken to me that way. The woman I married wouldn't have seen concern as control. I spent that night on the couch, replaying the exchange and the months leading up to it. By morning, I realized we had reached a turning point. The question was no longer whether our marriage was in trouble. It was whether there was anything left worth saving. 2 weeks after our late-night confrontation, I received an unexpected call from my office. Pinnacle Dining Group was opening a flagship restaurant in Hartford, and they needed an emergency pre-opening inspection. Since I oversaw the regional team, I would typically assign someone else, but given the high-profile nature of the client, I decided to handle it personally. I arrived at the sleek new restaurant at the scheduled time, clipboard in hand and professional mindset firmly in place. The manager greeted me warmly, explaining that their executive team was on site for a final walkthrough before the health inspection. "We're confident everything meets the highest standards," he said, "but Ms. Pearson insisted we have her agency's preliminary assessment before the official inspection." I nodded, not betraying any reaction to my wife's name. "I'll be thorough. That's what you're paying for." As I methodically checked the kitchen facilities, I heard familiar voices approaching from the dining area. Tara entered the kitchen, engaged in animated conversation with a tall, dark-haired man in an expensive suit. Their body language was unmistakable: the casual touches, the leaning in while speaking, the shared laughter. I recognized him immediately as Daniel Cruz, Pinnacle's regional operations director, who I'd met at several company events. Tara froze when she saw me. "Mason, I didn't know you'd be conducting the inspection personally." "Last-minute assignment," I replied evenly, continuing to make notes on my clipboard. The regular inspector had a family emergency. Daniel extended his hand. "Good to see you again, Mason. Tara's been working closely with me on this location. Her expertise has been invaluable." I shook his hand firmly, noting the expensive watch and the lingering scent of my wife's preferred perfume on his suit. "I'm sure it has." The tension in the room was palpable as I continued my inspection with meticulous attention to detail. When I found a significant violation in the refrigeration temperature controls, I documented it carefully. "This needs to be addressed before your official inspection," I stated professionally. "The current setup doesn't meet safety requirements for raw seafood storage." Daniel frowned. "Are you sure? Our contractor assured us everything was up to code." "I don't make the regulations, Mr. Cruz. I just enforce them." I handed him the preliminary report. "The full details are here," along with recommended corrections. Tara stepped forward. Mason, surely there's some flexibility here. The opening is scheduled for Friday. I looked directly into her eyes. Food safety regulations exist to protect people from illness, Tara. There's no flexibility when it comes to public health. You know that. Could we discuss this privately? She asked, gesturing toward the manager's office. Once the door closed behind us, she dropped the professional facade. What are you doing? This is a huge launch for me. I'm doing my job, I replied calmly. The same way you've been doing yours. Is this some kind of payback? She demanded. I shook my head. The violation is real and potentially dangerous. Check it yourself if you don't believe me. I won't compromise my professional integrity, even for you. Daniel thinks. I don't care what Daniel thinks, I interrupted, my voice firm but controlled. And the fact that his opinion is your first concern tells me everything I need to know. She defended her co-worker immediately. Daniel has nothing to do with this. He's a valued colleague who. She defended her co-worker instead of me. And that's when I said the words that made everything fall apart. I spoke quietly, almost to myself, the realization crystallizing in that moment. What did you say? Tara asked, confusion replacing her anger. I said it's over, Tara. Not the inspection. Our marriage. I won't be second place in my own life anymore. I walked out of the office, completed my inspection with professional detachment, and drove straight home to pack an overnight bag. Some decisions, once made, bring unexpected clarity. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what needed to be done. I checked into a modest hotel near my office, needing space to clear my head and plan my next steps. That evening, I called Rick, explaining the situation as objectively as I could. Can't say I'm surprised, he said after listening quietly. Want you to come over? We could grab a drink. Not tonight, I replied. I need to think. But thanks for the offer. Whatever you need, man. Just don't go through this alone. After hanging up, I sat at the hotel desk and methodically listed what I knew versus what I suspected. The known facts. Tara had been emotionally distant for months, regularly came home, late smelling of alcohol, and prioritized her co-worker's opinion over our marriage. The suspicions that her relationship with Daniel went beyond professional boundaries. I wasn't going to make accusations without evidence, but I needed clarity before meeting with a divorce attorney. The next morning, I called my office and took a personal day, something I rarely did. Then I began a careful review of our joint finances. The credit card statements revealed a pattern of expenses I hadn't noticed before. Regular charges at an upscale hotel bar downtown, jewelry purchases from a boutique I'd never heard of, and weekend getaways labeled as business conferences that coincided with Tara's unexplained absences. I found something else during my search, a separate checking account Tara had opened 6 months earlier. Regular transfers from our joint savings had been funding this account, which now held nearly $30,000. Money we had originally set aside for future childcare expenses. My hand shook slightly as I compiled the evidence. This wasn't just about emotional disconnection or career prioritization. This was methodical preparation for a separate life. I was standing in our bedroom, looking at the space we'd once shared when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my mother's name. Mason, honey, are you and Tara still coming for Sunday dinner? She asked cheerfully. I hesitated, unprepared for the question. Actually, Mom, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? You sound terrible. Tara and I are having problems. Serious ones. I've moved out temporarily. The words felt strange to say aloud. There was a long pause before she replied. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Your father and we've been worried. You haven't seemed yourself lately. You noticed? I was genuinely surprised. Of course we did. We didn't want to interfere, but... She paused again. Mason, whatever's happening, you know you can come home if you need to. Your old room is always there. The offer, so simple, so maternal, nearly broke my composure. Thanks, Mom. I might take you up on that. After the call, I finished packing the essentials I'd need for an extended separation. As I was zipping up my suitcase, I heard the front door open. Tara was home, much earlier than usual. I steeled myself for the confrontation that was sure to follow. Whatever happened next, I was done being a supporting character in my own life story. It was time to reclaim my narrative. Tara arrived home that evening earlier than usual. I was in our bedroom, methodically packing the remainder of my clothes when I heard her footsteps on the stairs. What are you doing? she asked from the doorway, her voice tense. I continued folding a shirt without looking up. Exactly what it looks like. Mason, this is ridiculous. You can't just walk out on our marriage because of one disagreement. I finally turned to face her. One disagreement? Is that what you call the last 6 months? The broken promises? The late nights? The secret bank account? Her expression faltered. What bank account? I handed her the printouts of the account statements I discovered. $30,000, Tara. Money we save for our future children. Children you never intended to have. She scanned the papers, her face hardening. You had no right to go through my personal finances. Joint accounts aren't personal, they're marital assets. Just like this house, which we're going to have to sell. Tara tossed the papers onto the bed. You're overreacting. I was setting money aside for a potential career opportunity. That's all. With Daniel. I asked quietly. Her eyes narrowed. Don't bring him into this. He's a colleague. A colleague who wears your perfume, who takes you to hotel bars and weekend getaways disguised as business conferences. You've been spying on me, she demanded, voice rising. I've been discovering the truth. I corrected her. There's a difference. Tara ran her hand through her hair in frustration. Fine. Yes, Daniel and I have gotten close. But it's not what you think. Then what is it? I challenged. It's complicated, she replied, the classic evasion. I zipped up my suitcase. Actually, it's very simple. You broke our marriage vows, Tara. You lied, repeatedly. You diverted our shared resources. But worst of all, you stopped seeing us as a team. I never meant to hurt you, she said, her voice softening strategically. We can fix this. Go to counseling. Start over. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized I no longer recognized the woman I'd married. The calculation behind her eyes, the practiced conciliatory tone. This was her professional negotiation face, not genuine remorse. I've already spoken with an attorney, I said calmly. I'll be filing for divorce next week. Her expression changed instantly, anger replacing contrition. You'll regret this, Mason. I won't let you take half of everything I've worked for. I picked up my suitcase. That's where you're wrong. I don't want half of anything. I just want out. As I walked past her, she grabbed my arm. Don't do this. Think about your career. Pinnacle has connections throughout the industry. I gently removed her hand. Are you threatening me professionally now? That's a new low, even for you. I walked down the stairs and out the door, not looking back. The threatening text messages started before I reached my car, but I didn't bother reading them. Some bridges need to be burned to prevent you from crossing them again. 6 months after filing for divorce, I sat across from my attorney as she delivered the final paperwork. Congratulations, Mason. It's officially over, she said, sliding the decree across her desk. Not many divorces conclude this cleanly. I signed where indicated. I didn't want a drawn-out battle. The house sale covered most of our shared debt, and I had no interest in fighting over material possessions. Her attorney was surprised by your approach, she admitted. They were prepared for a much more aggressive stance. Fighting would only have prolonged our connection. I explained. I wanted a clean break. As I left the law office, I felt a profound sense of closure. The divorce had been finalized, but my personal rebuilding had begun months earlier. After moving into a modest apartment, I'd accepted a new position with a national restaurant safety consultation firm. The role allowed me to help small, independent restaurants navigate complex regulations, exactly the kind of work I'd always wanted to do. The increase in travel meant a fresh start in multiple cities, meeting new people and exploring new places. I'd also rebuilt my friendship with Rick, who had been an unexpected source of strength throughout the process. He never said, "I told you so," though he certainly could have. My parents have been equally supportive, hosting Sunday dinners that became a cornerstone of my weekly routine. My mother, initially heartbroken about the end of my marriage, eventually revealed her own suspicions about Tara. She never really looked at you the way you looked at her, Mom observed one evening as we washed dishes together. A mother notices these things. The hardest lesson I'd learned was about loyalty, not just from a spouse, but to myself. I'd compromised too much, ignored too many warning signs, and lost sight of my own needs in the process. I hadn't dated since the separation, focusing instead on rebuilding my life's foundation. But recently, I'd met someone interesting, a pediatric nutritionist I'd consulted with for a school lunch program inspection. Our coffee meetings to discuss the project had gradually evolved into conversations about everything else. I was proceeding cautiously, but for the first time in years, I felt genuinely optimistic. The most unexpected development came 3 weeks after my divorce was finalized. Daniel Cruz was indicted for financial improprieties at Pinnacle Dining Group. The news reports mentioned a female accomplice who had turned state's evidence in exchange for immunity. I didn't need to see a name to know who it was. As I finished unpacking in my new house, smaller than the marital home, but entirely mine, I placed a framed quote on my desk. "The price of trust is vigilance, but the reward is freedom." The words reminded me daily that some lessons, however painful, are worth their cost.